Have you ever felt like you were just there? Like you existed in a space but no one really noticed? That's how it always was with my family. I wasn't the golden child. I wasn't the troublemaker. I was just in between. The one who did what was expected but never quite enough. It started with small things easy to ignore. My parents forgetting to save me a plate at dinner. My brother taking my stuff, knowing no one would care when I complained. They never outright said I didn't matter, at least not at first, but it was in the way they spoke around me like I was an afterthought. I told myself families weren't perfect. Maybe I was just being too sensitive. Maybe if I worked harder, did better, they'd finally see me, so I tried. My grades were solid, I helped around the house, I stayed out of trouble. But it didn't matter. My brother, he could do anything. Talk back, skip chores, fail a class, and they'd make excuses. For him, he's just a kid. He's going through a tough time, you should be more supportive. And if I pointed out the difference, I was the problem. I was being difficult. Then one day the resentment boiled over. Not from me, from them. It was a Saturday night. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted. Nothing special, just a part-time job at a grocery store. I worked weekends to save up since my parents never really gave me much. My brother, though, he never had to lift a finger. Anything he wanted, he got. I walked in, and there he was, slouched on the couch, controller in hand, eyes glued to the screen, a half-eaten plate of food on the table, and on the floor, my backpack open, my notes, my papers scattered. My stomach sank. Dude, what the hell? I sighed, bending down to pick up my stuff. Oh yeah, he muttered, not even glancing at me. Needed some paper, took some. I flipped through my notebook. My notes, the ones I'd spent hours on, were gone, torn out. I clenched my jaw. Are you serious? He finally looked up, shrugged. Relax, just some dumb notes. Not like you do anything important anyway. That hit harder than it should have. Maybe because deep down I knew that's how he really saw me. How they all saw me. Where are they? I asked, voice tight. He scoffed. Dunno, probably in the trash. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. Not in an angry, screaming way. Just cold. Quiet. A realization. I wasn't one of them. Not really. I took a breath, forcing myself to stay calm. You're unbelievable, I muttered, walking past him toward the kitchen. And then my parents walked in. They were laughing about something, some inside joke. Something I was never part of. But the moment they saw me standing there, the mood shifted. What's with the attitude? My dad asked, eyes narrowing. I exhaled sharply, still gripping my ruined notebook. Ask him, I said, nodding toward my brother. He tore out my notes, just threw them away like they were nothing. My mom barely even looked at him. It's just paper, she said, waving a dismissive hand. I waited for something, anything, that wasn't cool. Don't do that again. But nothing. Instead, my brother smirked. Yeah, just paper. Like he knew he had already won. I felt my fingers tighten around the notebook. Right. Of course, I turned to go upstairs, but my dad's voice stopped me. You know, this attitude is exactly why no one wants to be around you. I froze. What? I asked, turning slowly. My mom sighed, already exasperated. You overreact to everything, always playing the victim, always causing problems. I let out a bitter laugh. Causing problems? For expecting basic respect? For not wanting my stuff? Trashed? My brother snorted. God, you're so dramatic, I shook my head. You guys act like I'm the problem, but you don't even see what's happening. You just let him do whatever he wants. Dad folded his arms. Because he's not the one constantly whining. That hit hard. But not as hard as what came next. My brother leaned back on the couch, stretched out and smirked. No one wants you here, man. My stomach dropped, but it was my parents' reaction that broke something in me. They nodded. They actually nodded. They didn't argue, didn't tell him to stop, didn't defend me. They just stood there silent, as if it was a fact they had accepted a long time ago. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just breathed. and something inside me went cold. "Okay," I said simply, and I walked upstairs, and I packed my bags, and I left. But this wasn't the end, not even close, because the next morning, my phone was blowing up. 12 missed calls, and that's when I knew. Leaving was the best decision I had ever made. I didn't answer, not at first. I just watched as the notifications kept piling up. My brother, my dad, even my mom. For a family that never wanted me, they sure were desperate now. I let it ring. I wasn't in a rush. I had no plan when I left. Just threw my things in a duffel bag and walked out feeling numb. Crashed at a friend's place, someone who actually gave a damn. He didn't ask questions, didn't push, just handed me a blanket and said, "You can stay as long as you need." That was more kindness than my own family had shown me in years. But now they wanted something, and I had a feeling it wasn't because they missed me. The call stopped. Then the text started rolling in. "Mom, you're being immature. Come back, Dad." "Enough of this nonsense. Stop acting like a child," I scoffed. Yeah, I really left. And they clearly weren't sorry. Then a new message popped up, and it changed everything. "Mom, come home now. We have a problem." I stared at the screen, my pulse picking up. A problem? I debated ignoring it. But curiosity won. I typed back just 2 words. "What happened?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Mom, your brother screwed up bad." And just like that, I knew they didn't miss me. They didn't want me back. They needed me. And that gave me an idea. I leaned back against the couch, staring at my phone. So, now they needed me. Interesting. I wasn't in a rush to respond. Instead, I let them sweat. If my brother had really messed up, then whatever happened was big enough that my parents, who had never once taken my side, were suddenly reaching out. More messages poured in. "Dad, we don't have time for your attitude. Just come home." "Mom, please, this is serious. Serious." That almost made me laugh. When my problems were serious, they told me to get over it. But now that he was in trouble, now it was urgent. I took my time typing my next response. Not my problem. A minute passed. And then, more missed calls. It had been 5 years since Arjun last set foot in his hometown. 5 years since his so-called best friend Vikram had betrayed him, framed him for a crime he didn't commit, and walked away scot-free. Arjun had spent those years in silence, in exile, and in suffering. But now, he was back. And this time, he wasn't here for justice. He was here for revenge. Vikram had everything Arjun once had: a thriving business, a beautiful home, and the respect of the town. But what Vikram didn't know was that Arjun had spent these years planning the perfect downfall, and it would start tonight. Arjun watched from the shadows as Vikram entered his luxurious penthouse, completely unaware of the trap set in motion. Arjun had spent weeks infiltrating Vikram's life from a distance, hacking into his systems, planting evidence, and ensuring that when the final moment came, Vikram wouldn't even realize what had hit him. The first step was paranoia. It started small, a strange email from an unknown sender. "I know what you did." Then the calls began, silent at first, then breathing, then whispers in the dead of night. Vikram's confident demeanor began to crack. The second step was isolation. A forged document leaked online suggested Vikram had been embezzling money from his own company. His investors pulled out overnight, his employees began quitting, and the media swarmed like vultures. The final step was destruction. Vikram ran to the only person he had ever truly feared: Arjun. But when he barged into Arjun's rented apartment, he found nothing but a single envelope on the desk. Hands shaking, he opened it. Inside was a simple note: "I took everything from you, just like you did to me. Now we're even." As Vikram collapsed onto the floor, his phone buzzed. A breaking news alert flashed on the screen. "Police. Launch investigation into Vikram's illegal dealings. Arrest warrant issued." Vikram screamed, knowing there was no escape. Meanwhile, Arjun stood on the rooftop of a nearby building, watching it all unfold with a calm smile. Revenge, after all, was best served cold.